I didn't plan to spend my Saturday at a laundromat, but our washing machine quit like a tired old dog and wouldn't start again. I stood there in my small apartment in Austin, holding a basket of socks and t-shirts, pressing the same button as if the machine would change its mind. Nothing. A soft click, then silence. I laughed at myself, grabbed a backpack, and started packing clothes in it like I was going on a small trip. Outside, the morning was warm and bright. The street smelled like tortillas from the food truck on the corner. A jogger passed, and a blue jay jumped on a cable line, shouting at no one. I tightened the straps on my bag and walked east to a place called Spin City. The sign had a big smiling dryer and a simple promise: clean clothes, good music, cold water. Inside, the air was cool and smelled like soap. The floor was checkerboard, black and white. A fan on the ceiling turned slowly, like a lazy clock. A teenager with a guitar case sat near the window, tapping a rhythm on his knee. An older man with a cowboy hat read the sports page, tracing the words with his finger. On the far wall, a bulletin board was full of small notes, index cards, and drawings. Someone had written, "Take what you need, leave what you can," with tape holding the corners. There were offers for babysitting, a flyer for a yard sale, and a small card that said, "If you find this, I hope your day gets better." I smiled at the note, bought a roll of quarters from the lady at the counter, and chose a washing machine by the window. The lady at the counter had a name tag, LUZ. She wore bright red glasses and a shirt that said "Stay Fresh." She said, "Don't overfill the washers. They get cranky." I promised to be kind. A little boy in a dinosaur t-shirt ran by and pressed his face to the glass of a dryer like he was at an aquarium. His dad followed with 2 cups of orange juice and a look that said this was the 3rd cup today. I sorted my clothes on a folding table and found a hanger with an extra button attached in a tiny plastic bag. I don't know why, but I put the button in my pocket. My grandmother used to sew and kept small things like that, and it felt good to have one in my hand, like a little coin from a different time. I poured soap, started the machine, and watched the water rise. The teenager tuned his guitar. The cowboy hat man coughed gently and turned the page. Laundry has a quiet rhythm. You push a button. You wait. You fold. You wait. Time moves, but doesn't hurry. I liked it. I liked the soft thrum of the machines and the way the door windows made small wheels of water. I liked that everyone in the room was here for the same simple reason. The world outside could be complicated. You could feel lost, late, or loud. But in here, life was clear: shirts, pants, socks, and the patience to make them clean. A woman in a green dress asked me if I had a spare quarter. I did, and I gave her 2. "Thank you," she said. And then, after a small pause, "I like your shoes." It was a nice, human trait, metal for a kind word. Luz turned up the radio, and old soul music filled the room. Warm bass, a voice with grit and comfort. The boy with the dinosaur shirt began to dance with his elbows up, and his dad clapped on 2 and 4. The teenager smiled and played along softly, matching the chords. When the wash finished, I moved my clothes into a dryer and found another note stuck to the back wall of the drum, a little square of paper with blue lines. I pulled it off and read, "You're doing better than you think." I looked around. No one was watching me, but I felt seen anyway. I put the note back and started the dryer on medium. The machine hummed like a big cat resting after lunch. I sat near the window, sipping water from a paper cup, and watched a cloud move slowly across the hot sky. Then the door opened, and the wind changed. A sudden breeze brought in the smell of rain, even though the sun was still out. Lou stepped outside and looked up. "Summer storm," she said. "It'll be quick." Her voice sounded sure, like a weather report you could trust. I believed her. I believed most people in that room, in fact. We stood there with pockets full of coins, waiting for warm cotton and small proof that simple effort still works. When the first raindrops hit the sidewalk, fat and loud, I felt strangely calm. My clothes were turning in circles, and I was exactly where I needed to be. For once, I wasn't trying to multitask or get ahead. I was just here, in a laundromat, letting Austin breathe around me. It felt like a good decision, almost like a tiny vacation I didn't plan but happily took. The storm arrived hard, like a drummer counting in. Rain slapped the pavement and then softened into a steady stream. I watched it run off the awning and wondered if the city felt cleaner every time this happened. People drifted to the doorway to look at the street turned silver. I moved closer, too, holding my cup and feeling the cool air on my face. The teenager with the guitar took it out of the case and played a slow, careful melody that matched the rain. He wasn't showing off. He was just adding a small line to the weather. The cowboy hat man closed his newspaper and leaned on the counter, listening. Even the dinosaur boy got quiet, as if the room had suddenly become a theater and the show had started. Then the lights flickered. A short, sharp blink. Everyone looked up. The machines kept going, but the radio died for a second and came back late to the beat. Luz clicked her tongue. "We'll be fine," she said, and somehow that became the truth. A woman at the back asked me if I knew how to thread the needle on the little repair station, a metal table with a jar of buttons and 3 spools of thread. She had a shirt with a loose button near the collar. I told her I wasn't great at sewing, but I could try. We stood shoulder to shoulder, and I pinched the needle, put it in my mouth for a second like my grandmother used to, and guided the thread through. My hands were clumsy but willing. The repair took 3 minutes. "Perfect," she said, and that was too kind, but it made me happy. I gave her the extra plastic button from my pocket, and we both laughed at how official that made it feel. The storm grew louder. A new wave of people came in, wet and smiling, holding their laundry bags like shields. A tall man in a suit set his briefcase down and checked his phone with the urgency of someone who couldn't be late again. He stared at the washers like they were in a different language. I showed him which one took hot, which took cold, and where to pour the soap. He thanked me the way you thank someone for pointing out the right door in a long hallway. The boy in the dinosaur shirt fell asleep on 2 folded towels, and his dad finally finished his juice. When the power finally did go out, just for a minute, the room gave a small, collective sigh. The lights went black, the machines stopped mid-turn, and the radio fell quiet. We stood in a soft, sudden hush, listening to the rain alone. I could hear my own breath and the tiny clicking of hot metal cooling down. I could also hear my own thoughts, which don't always like to be heard. I thought of deadlines and bills, and the way I sometimes forget to call my brother. But then the lights returned, and everything woke with a friendly shake. The drums and the song found us again. The machines continued from the exact moment they had left, like loyal dogs returning to the yard. People clapped. Not a big cheer, just a quick pat of relief. Luz raised her hands like a conductor. "See," she said, and at that point, I would have believed her about anything. Weather, power, life. My dryer buzzed. Warm air hit my face when I opened the door. I folded my clothes slowly, with care I didn't always have. A towel, a shirt, a pair of socks joined together like old friends. I put the note from the dryer in the pocket of my jeans and left a new one on the bulletin board, just a few words on a square of paper. Thanks for the music, the rain, and the quarters. Someone had drawn a small laundry basket on the corner of the board and written today above it. It felt right to add a small thank you to that day. Outside, the storm was already moving east. Puddles reflected the sky. The awning dripped in a slow rhythm. I slung my backpack over my shoulder and took a deep breath. My Saturday was clean and warm, and I hadn't planned that, but maybe that was the best part. I woke up the next Saturday, and checked the building washer out of habit. It purred back to life after a repair. I could have done laundry at home, no problem. But my mind kept drifting to Spin City. The checkerboard floor, the radio, the guitar, the bulletin board full of small courage. I had other chores, but none felt urgent. So I filled my backpack with the week's clothes and, for no clear reason, added a small mason jar of quarters. I wrote a label on blue tape, Laundry Library. I didn't know if it was silly. It probably was. But some ideas won't leave you alone until you carry them into the world. The sun was high and bright. No rain today. A food truck was selling breakfast tacos near the bus stop, and I bought one with eggs and potato and a little salsa that woke my whole face. A man at the truck asked the cook if the Cowboys were playing at home. Two kids traded stickers like their lives depended on it. Austin on a Saturday is a friendly parade. It keeps moving and lets you join in whenever you want. Spin City was cool as always. Luz wore blue glasses today and a shirt with a lemon on it. The teenager from last week, same guitar, different t-shirt, sat by the window again, picking a country melody that sounded like open land. The cowboy hat man wasn't there, but the dinosaur boy was, carefully pushing a toy car along the edge of a laundry basket like a tightrope walker. I set the mason jar on the counter. "What's this?" Luz asked. "A laundry library," I said, suddenly shy. "People can borrow a quarter, then put one back when they can." Luz smiled so wide I could see the day shift in her eyes. "We've got a philosopher," she said. "Leave it by the board." I taped the jar to the bulletin board with strong, clear tape. The top had a small slot, just big enough for a coin. I added a note. "Take one if you need one. Leave one if you can." Under it, I stuck the message I found last week. "You're doing better than you think." It felt like the jar and the note were cousins. The teenager put the guitar down and came over. "That's cool," he said. "I'm Jude." We shook hands. His fingers were calloused from practice. "I'm Michael," I said. "You sounded great last week." He laughed. "My amp sounded great last week. I'm still learning." I told him that made two of us. A man in a light gray shirt walked in, holding a suit on a hanger and wearing a nervous smile. I recognized him from the Power Out minutes, the one who needed hot and cold explained. "Hey," he said to me, then to the room. I got the job. It was like he threw a small stone into a quiet pond, and the ripples reached everyone. Luz hooped. The dinosaur boy clapped, because clapping is always right. Jude played a cheerful riff without thinking. The man blushed and lifted the suit a little higher, as if to show the team uniform. "Start Monday," he added, still surprised. "Bring your shirt," I said. "We've got thread," Luz said at the same time, and we laughed. I put my clothes in a washer and then took a walk around the bulletin board. It was fuller now. Someone had added free cactus cuttings. Ask Maria, Unit 2B. Someone else posted, looking for a band to play at backyard birthday. Small crowd, friendly dog. The laundry library jar already had 5 quarters inside, which felt like a small miracle and also totally normal. When people are given a gentle chance to be kind, they usually take it. A man with a deep beard struggled with a broken zipper on a hoodie. I offered the repair station again. He watched closely as I eased the slider back onto the teeth and pulled it up slow. "My grandma used to fix things like this," I said. "Mine too," he said. We stood there for a second, 2 grown men inside a small bubble of thread and memory. He nodded, zipped up, and said, "I'm Jonah." I told him my name and pointed out the jar. He dropped in a quarter without pausing, like he had planned to anyway. It became a rhythm. People came, washed, borrowed, helped, left notes. The radio played old and new songs without judgment. Jude asked if he could try something during the next spin cycle. "What?" I asked. "Just a 10-minute set," he said, blushing. "A mini show while people fold." I looked at Luz. She shrugged in a generous way that meant yes. Why not, she said. Everything sounds better near clean cotton. When my dryer buzzed, Jude stood near the window and started playing. He wasn't loud. He chose small songs that fit between the hums and beeps. People kept folding, but they listened. Some nodded. One woman sang harmonies softly while pairing socks. Jonah tapped the repair station with 2 fingers like a drum. The dinosaur boy danced his elbows again. Same style, new day. When Jude finished, the room clapped. He looked like he had just jumped into the lake and come up smiling. After that, I felt braver. I took a stack of blank index cards from the counter and passed them around. Write anything, I said. A tip, a joke, a kind word. People did. They wrote things like, "Don't forget the lint trap," and "You can start again anytime," and "Best dryer is number 12. Jonah wrote, "Patience is a quiet muscle." The man with the new job wrote, "Your tie is fine. Smile." Luz wrote, "Call your mother," and under it in smaller letters, or at least text her. I wrote, "Today is a good day to be gentle." We pinned the cards to the board, and the wall looked like a small-town newspaper. Simple headlines, good news, useful facts, and a little poetry copy-edited by Soap. A woman from the apartment next to mine came in and saw me under the board with tape and cards. "You live above the taco truck, right?" she asked. I nodded. She laughed. "I knew it. You always smell like salsa." I laughed too. She added a quarter to the jar and a card to the board. "Eat breakfast." When the room thinned out and the machines worked on their last cycles, I sat by the window with Jude and split a bottle of cold water. We looked outside at the bright pavement and the tiny river that forms near the curb when the big AC units drip. "You play anywhere else?" I asked him. "Not really," he said. "Just here now, I guess." He shrugged, but his eyes stayed proud. "Here is good," I said, and I meant it. My clothes came out warm again. I folded them the same slow way. Shirt, pants, small stack, done. The heat felt like a friendly handshake. Before leaving, I added 2 more quarters to the jar and flattened the tape on the corners. The bulletin board looked like it had always been this way, as if we had only discovered it, not built it. On the way out, the man with the new job stopped me. "Thanks for the help last week," he said. I would have frozen. "I'm rich, by the way." We shook hands. He smelled like starch and hope. "You've got this," I said, and he laughed. "See you around," he answered, and it felt like a promise with an address. On my walk home, everything looked slightly cleaner, even the parts that weren't. The sidewalks were the same. The food truck was still there, sending out the good smell. Kids chased a basketball into the street and back to the sidewalk. A bus hissed at a stop. But something in me had shifted, not big, just a quiet click, like a button returning to its place. I carried my backpack lightly. I wasn't in a hurry. Saturday had given me an extra room to breathe, and I had decided to keep it. 2 weeks later, I still went back to Spin City, even when my building washer was working. It wasn't about laundry anymore, not only. It was about the place, the people, the tiny community around quarters and cotton. I brought a small bag of clothespins with smiley faces drawn on them and clipped them to the edge of the bulletin board for anyone who wanted one. A little girl picked a green one and said thank you in a whisper so soft I almost missed it. The jar stayed simple. Some days it had 2 coins, some days it had 20. Luz added a small note on the counter. "Ask if you need soap. We have a little to share." People asked. People shared. It felt like bringing a small plant to a window and watching it lean toward the light without being told. Jude started spin sessions, a thing he invented without meaning to. 10 minutes. 3 songs. No sign-up. Whoever felt brave could try. The first week, only he played. The second week, a woman sang a lullaby from her childhood while her toddler slept across 2 chairs. The third week, Jonah read a poem he wrote on a receipt about waiting for his jeans to dry and remembering his father teaching him to iron. His voice trembled, but he finished, and the room clapped like they were afraid to wake the sleeping child. Luz recorded these small shows with her phone and sent the videos to the people who asked for them. "Art is like laundry," she said to me once, smiling over the rim of her coffee. "You bring it here messy and leave with it lighter." One afternoon, the cowboy hat man came back and put a clipping on the board from the sports section. On the bottom, he wrote, "Win or lose, we still fold." I added another index card with a tip I learned. Shake the t-shirt before the dryer. Fewer wrinkles. Rich, now the man with a job and a new haircut, came in with a bag of donuts and said it was his turn to share. He also brought a tie for someone to practice with and taught a boy my age how to make a simple knot, standing side by side in the mirror by the soda machine. They both looked relieved when the knot held like a small, polite promise. The dinosaur boy, now holding a plastic stegosaurus, pressed the button on the same dryer over and over like it was the light switch to the moon. I fixed more buttons with the repair station. At some point, people started calling me Button Guy, which made me laugh and blush at the same time. It wasn't a skill, just patience, a steady hand, and a tiny needle that liked to hide in plain sight. I kept extras of those little plastic bags with spare buttons, like trading cards for quiet adults. When I needed a patch of quiet myself, I would stand by the window and let the hum of the room reset me. The machines became a kind of simple music, the roll of water, the buzz at the end, the soft slap of a dryer door closing. Familiar, friendly, forgiving. On a hot Sunday, Luz taped a bigger paper to the board. Neighborhood clothesline, Saturday evening. Bring one story, one song, or one tip. We'll share lemonade. I had the nervous excitement of a person invited to a small wedding where everyone brings a dish. I started making a list in my phone of my best laundry tips, which made me smile at how my life had changed. A year ago, my lists were all deadlines and grocery items. Now I was writing, turn socks inside out before washing, with the seriousness of a recipe. Saturday came with a golden sky and air that smelled like cut grass. People arrived with laundry bags, but many left them closed and just talked. Jude played the opening notes to a song that had lived on every radio since the 80s, and everyone recognized it at once. Two women harmonized without planning. Rich told the short story of his first week at the new job, the coffee machine that hated him, the printer that tested him, the boss who turned out to be human. Jonah read a new poem about quarters passing through hands like tiny planets. Luz poured lemonade into paper cups and kept the trash can from tipping over with one foot, without looking, like a bartender who knows the room. When it was my turn, I didn't sing. I didn't read. I just held up the jar and the small sewing kit and told a few stories about notes in dryers, about a power blink that made us all breathe together, about a boy who danced with his elbows and taught me to celebrate without a reason. My voice shook at the beginning and then settled. I could see my reflection in the window, a regular guy with a backpack and a jar, happy to be here. This place helped me slow down, I said. I came because the machine broke. I stayed because something else started working. People nodded. Not a big reaction, just quiet agreement, which I have learned is its own kind of applause. Luz raised her cup. To clean shirts and clean starts, she said, and we repeated it, a soft toast in a room full of cotton and kindness. The sun slid lower. The machines kept spinning. A breeze came through the door and lifted the corners of the notes on the board. For a second, the whole wall looked like it might take flight and carry our small messages down the street. Reminders to current and future strangers that they are allowed to be gentle with themselves, that patience can be practiced, that you're doing better than you think. is a sentence you can borrow whenever you need it. When the night came, we turned off the big lights and left the small ones over the counter. The room glowed like a quiet porch. People said goodbye the way you do when you live close enough to see each other again. I packed my empty backpack and slipped a few extra index cards into my pocket. On my way out, I tapped the jar with my knuckle and heard the soft, hopeful sound of coins agreeing to help. Outside, the heat had finally cooled. The sky over Austin was navy blue with a few stars, and the street was calm. I walked home slow, shirt warm from the dryer, heart steady. I knew I would return, not because I had to, but because I wanted to keep carrying this small, bright thing we had found together, this simple circle of wash, wait, fold, share. It was an easy rhythm, and somehow, in a city full of music, it had become my favorite song.